What if everything paranormal investigators have ever captured, every apparition, every EVP, every unexpected event, was just one piece of a much larger puzzle? Tonight's guest has spent his career trying to pull the puzzle together. Welcome back to The Common Historian, where history meets the supernatural. I'm Jeremy, and tonight I'm sitting down with paranormal investigator, researcher, and founder of Uini Research, and author of The Paranormal Puzzle, John Griffin. From growing up in a haunted house in Schenectady to appearing on Death Walker, Paranormal Survivor, My Ghost Story, and more, John has spent his life chasing answers the rest of the world is afraid to ask. Tonight, we're diving into his brand new book, Paranormal Puzzle, Path to Communication. Dim the lights and let's get into it. Welcome back to The Common Historian, John.
Good to be back. Thank you for having me again.
Oh, not a problem. So excited for this conversation. I know you have your new book, but I thought I'd start with your childhood and origin story before we dove into the book itself. And you, I believe, have been experiencing paranormal activity since age 4. Most kids at that age can't process what they're seeing there. What's your earliest memory of something happening that you couldn't explain?
So that was going to be the one from age 4. It was sometime between my after my birthday in August to the time my brother Jeremy was born in the end of November. I don't remember obviously which month or what date. Actually, I could maybe limit it down to a bit. It might have been sometime in September and beyond because I remember I was in nursery school at that point. So the first experience I had was actually a really good one. It was an angelic being, and I was in what was referred to as the back room. For me, it was the playroom. It was going to become Jeremy's room, and so that was being prepared for him. But I still used to play in that room, and there was just this. I felt like I was being drawn to the back window, and when I looked outside, I saw this. It was a really nice, beautiful light. There was a being. They were really tall, they were floating, and they had wings, but I didn't see any facial features or anything like that. It was just like light.
Yeah.
And the last thing I remember before it disappeared was there were three lights, three flashes of light that went towards me, and then the being was gone. And that was the start of the paranormal journey from there. Unfortunately, that was like probably the best, if not one of the most common or calming type of experiences. After that, it just went downhill from there.
Now, as a kid growing up in a haunted house, did that affect you socially? Did people believe you?
No, they definitely didn't. As my father, for instance, was never into the paranormal. He didn't believe it. And my mother, she pretended to not believe because she didn't want to scare me with the experiences. And we're talking later on because I didn't really
Yeah.
talk about the angelic experience. It was when the experiences became very much more dark and scary that I brought it up to my parents. My mother played it off as more of you're just having bad dreams, everything's fine. Meanwhile, she had experiences of her own, not many, but she did have experiences in the same house. And so she did believe me. It's just that I wouldn't find out until I think it was in my 20s that I would find out that she actually did believe me back then. But her focus was making sure I wasn't scared. And it was the same for my brother. When he was born, he had experiences as well. We were the two primary targets of the haunting. And so we both had that issue. The social portion of it, I grew up going to private schools. I was Christian growing up, still Christian, just not following the man made versions of it. But I went to Christian schools. I'm glad I did go to those. But bringing up paranormal activity to your friends, it definitely at that time period was not a time period as if I'm like super old. Yeah. It was not something that you typically talked about. And I found that out the hard way. To me, I didn't know what a ghost was. I didn't know what death was. I brought it up to my friends in nursery school and I explained to them what I saw, not the angelic being, but the being afterwards, which would later be called the hunter. I thought it was a disappearing person. I thought it was a person with a superpower, but I'm like, why? I don't like the fact that people could appear and disappear in my house. Scary.
Yeah.
But it turned out that's when I learned that there's a thing called ghosts. and I was told, or apparently some of my friends went and told their parents, told them to stay away from me because I was of the devil. So that was the big social impact there, and that followed me throughout elementary school, junior high, and high school. Not so much as much in high school. Elementary school, it was prominent, it was there. People knew about me, they saw me, and oh, yep, the freak's here. And then my brother ended up becoming guilty by association. He didn't
Mm,
talk about it. It was me who opened up my mouth. And then my brother, ended up, we all went to the same school. We went to three different ones. There was a nursery school. Then once we were done there, we went to elementary school that was kindergarten through sixth. And then from there, we went to a school that had all of that, but it was actually, we went there for junior high and high school. But yeah, the Jeremy started getting bullied as a result of some of this. And he's not the one who talked about it. It was just simply they knew he was my brother. They knew some of my backstory, and that just made it down the chain.
yeah, yeah. Now, the hunter, was that more of a just a regular ghost? Was there any demonic, or was there anything demonic about him? Or can you tell us a little bit more about that?
There was somebody that I knew that we later found. We actually found the hunter. I think it was in a newspaper. There was a few things where we actually found out his name. When I saw the picture of him, I was like, "Holy crap, that's him!" And we're talking. This is in my 30s that I
Oh,
finally got to see this. So he was a negative spirit, at least for my brother and I. It seemed like he didn't like kids. Like my parents weren't affected. It was Jeremy and I who were affected. Not demonic, but definitely on the negative side. Now I did,
negative side.
yeah, we did have the full spectrum of a haunting. There was a demonic entity that showed up later. I don't believe that the hunter and that entity, based off of now seeing the history, I don't believe they're the same one and the same entity. Um,
Okay.
but we did have, aside from that, children spirits. I saw the ghost of my first dead dog, Robbie, and then there was the hunter. The hunter came first after the angelic beings. So then the two kid spirits were discovered later, and then the demonic one, when that showed up, all the other entities seemed like they just disappeared.
Oh,
So
they were probably scared.
yeah, yep.
It sounds very much like very similar to what about 20 plus years ago I lived in a haunted house for 2 years, and there was more than one spirit there. Luckily, other than our one in the basement that I he wasn't very nice. I wouldn't say he was just not nice.
Mhm.
But the other ones in there, we would hear babies crying. My wife would be home during the day, and there would be no one else but her and my daughter. And it sounded like someone was dancing upstairs, like a dance party was happening upstairs. And then I saw full body apparitions of a little old lady. I saw her multiple times, and a lady in white up in one of the bedrooms. So it sounds like similar to what you got. You had multiple different entities within the house. Unfortunately, for where I used to live, that was torn down right after we moved out. We only rented,
Wow.
and they tore it down. I keep saying I'm going to go back there with when I get some equipment and just see if any of them are still there.
That's, trust me, I've wanted to get back to my old childhood home and face the past, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to give credit where credit's due, and I'll explain. I explain the little bit of reason why I do this part specifically. Always, my brother is the one who came up with the name or the nickname of the hunter.
Okay.
He's the one because I've seen this the hunter, so to speak, in more in shadow form. I saw his apparition a couple times, but he was never in a hunter outfit. Jeremy described the same person to me that he saw, but he was in a hunter outfit. He was in camouflage and he was pointing a shotgun at him.
Cool.
And he said he had red eyes. But everything else that he described about him, like how tall he was, his facial features, stuff like that, aside from the red eyes, and I never saw the red eye part, was the same person. And that's where, when we go back to the historical stuff that we found, the person was, I believe he was in the Navy, like the army. He was in a military, and I went and I looked up in the time period where he was in the military. Would he wear a camouflage outfit? And it did indicate that that his branch would have worn the type of camouflage outfit that we saw, or that Jeremy
Oh,
saw. Not we,
yeah.
but Jeremy saw. So that's where we refer to him as the hunter because of the outfit he was wearing. And then come to find out he would have actually worn that. It wasn't him hunting animals, it was he was in the military. And the reason I focus on giving Jeremy credit on that is because when we were on one of the TV shows called Paranormal Survivor, we were taught, Jeremy and I, we talked about the story of the hunter. And I remember during my interview, because the interviews were on about a 15-minute segment, and but where they're getting interviewed, each one of us between Jeremy and I, we're getting interviewed an hour and a half to 2 hours each.
Yeah.
And they cut that all down, cut down 4 hours of footage to 15 minutes. The episode almost made it look like I was the one who came up with the hunter. And I remember Jeremy saying that he was like, I'm the one who came up with the hunter. I'm the one who saw him." And I was like, "Yeah, I said that. I brought that up during the interview. I said you saw him in the outfit, and then from there we called him the hunter." So I just want to make sure from an accuracy standpoint, because even though we're not altering the story on the
Yeah.
show, the the way the story seemed, it seemed like I was the one who came up with it.
I think it was that one. And I think you're right. It sounded like that they were crediting you for that. Um,
And I could tell that I was the main person that they focused on. Jeremy was on there. I'm happy that he was on there. I was trying to get him on to so that it was the two brothers telling the story, which I'm grateful that they let him on. I know from a personality standpoint, because like it's the entertainment industry, so they want people that have interesting personalities, outgoing and such. And I know that I have that. Jeremy, not as much.
yeah.
Of course, he was bothered that he was on there less and they had me on there more. At that point, I had already been on TV multiple times. I had already been on the my first show, My Ghost Story, Caught on Camera. I was familiar with this, whereas he wasn't. He was on also My Ghost Story, but he was he was a part of a reenactment. But yeah, there was just like you said, and you confirmed it. That's what it appeared as, and I just
Yeah.
always like to put on the record that if Jeremy's the one who came up with it, Jeremy gets the credit. I'll always speak on his behalf on that, well, since he's not here anymore.
Yeah. And that's one of the things on my podcast. I like to make sure to set the record straight and record the history, record the story. Now, I believe that you started your first paranormal group, what, about 16 or 17, maybe? If I-
Age 16, the TPO
yeah.
squad,
Yeah. So, what did that first team look like?
a
I was
bunch of
just curious about that.
about a bunch of 13, 14, 15 and 16-year olds running around with tools that we had no idea what to do with. I had a temperature gun. I'd see the temperature go down and I'm like, "Oh my goodness." Meanwhile, not understanding that what the laser's hitting, if it's hitting a surface, it's measuring the surface of something, not what's in the air. Didn't know that. I would find that out a long time later. I had my digital recorder. Actually, excuse me, not digital. I forgot. We were cassettes.
Yeah.
Those mini cassette tapes back then. Yeah, that's museum related stuff now. So I had that where it was I had those recorders, I had the temperature gun. We had camcorders. Of course, they weren't the digital, they were the tape ones as well. So it was very simple equipment. We didn't have any team shirts. I'm 16 at this point. I'm working as a part-time cashier. I'm not getting any of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if people wanted to bring their stuff, they could bring their stuff. I always believed in looking professional, so I required everybody to appear in a more
Appear.
professional state.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were as amateur could be, including the name. It was the Paranormal Officer Squad. That's when I learned you don't put the in the title, because then we were the Paranormal Officer Squad. So I will always pick on myself to this day about that. That was the first team. I remember seeing some paranormal shows like Ghost Hunters. That was the first paranormal show I really actually caught on to. And I was like, wow, people can do this stuff. Okay. You know what? I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it better. and that was that. Yeah, and of course, especially back then, I was more of a hothead. So yeah, that's that whole aspect of I'm gonna do it better than they do. There's gonna be I'm gonna prove that I'm not faking anything.
Yeah.
And boy, my mindset would change as the years went on.
Now, did I read that the team's name did change? Maybe the paranormal security department?
Yes. So the team, I don't say that the teams have shut down. The teams, if the mission has changed and we're trying to do a brand, essentially rebranding,
Yeah.
the team has evolved. So TPO squad, super amateur. First off, I think about it because I was getting into security and police, like I was looking to be doing that type of stuff down the line. Having the paranormal officer squad, hence the whole officer part. We're not officers. I just did that because I was looking at doing security or police work in the future. So I was, again, amateur stuff. The paranormal security department, that came afterwards. And at that point, I was in security, hence security. But the name, I learned, did not make sense to people because they were like, how do you provide security from ghosts? And of course, me
Yeah.
being a hothead, it's just security doesn't mean that. You're misunderstanding it. Because security, yes, it's about safety, but the main thing about security is that you're proactive. Security is about being proactive, not reactive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So security means something when you're in the security field, security means something different to security officers versus the general public. So when I'm thinking about it is I'm talking about paranormal proactive. So that's basically what I'm trying to hint at is we are proactive in what we're doing. The team was a lot better. In this case, we did have the uniform shirts. It was far more strict. It was very well organized. And at this point, we were starting to get more serious about it. We ended up getting up to about, I would say about 40 maybe $50,000 worth of equipment at one point.
Oh,
And I believe that for me, it was for me to fund it for the team, not the team to fund it for themselves. If they wanted to help, great, but they still own their own stuff that they purchase. So most of that came from me over the years. And we ended up having CCTV cameras at that point, and we started getting the more advanced related stuff. And then on top of that, we started doing baseline statistics. So now I'm starting to get into the numbers aspect of it,
yeah.
not realizing how important that was going to be in the future.
Now, did for Uini Research, was that just a rebranding of your previous team?
Yes, it is the final evolution. We're going to go Pokemon style. There's three evolutions tops, at least for the older generations of Pokemon. You have
Yeah.
you have your Charmander, Charmeleon, and Charizard type thing going on here. Uini Research is when we sat down, there was so much experience at that point that we learned a lot, especially myself. I learned about the naming of things. I learned about procedures. I was learning more about managerial related stuff, and it was time to take everything to a new level. So since the other team, that the paranormal security department, it was people questioning the direction that we were heading, and I'm like, we're trying to find the truth. And that means we have to make changes. We have to evolve. We can't just do the same thing and expect different results and expect to find the truth. So a majority of them had left, and I only had a few after that. And so we called it, we came up, it started off as you and I. And we decided that we didn't really like that as much. And I was like, what about you and I research, where you and I research together?
Yeah.
And the focus was is the logo would speak for it being something maybe paranormal, not the name. The name itself is supposed to be spelt weird, and the logo is supposed to represent showing that unity, the unclear portion of it too, the mysterious part. But when you research, it brings clarity. So that was the start of that, and there was it was a rebranding. But you could see if anybody were to have followed me since the beginning, you would see the evolution. You wouldn't see like a new team, you'd see an evolution happening.
Yeah. So, going into Paranormal Puzzle, could you break down Paranormal Puzzle's framework for anyone that's hearing it for the first time?
Sure. Paranormal Puzzle is basically it's our research, it's our research approach. So basically, when you take out you get a box with a puzzle in it, right? When you open up the box, are the pieces already together? Do you have your picture already, or are they all scattered?
All scattered.
They're all scattered. So you end up dumping your pieces out onto a table. And yeah, you may have a box that has the picture on it. The paranormal, unfortunately, doesn't exactly work that way.
Yeah.
But you're trying to take these different pieces, corner pieces. Some people start from the middle. Some people start at the top right corner, and you try to see if the pieces fit. You try to figure out logically this color and this color, yeah, it fits. And maybe it does and maybe it doesn't. If it doesn't, you put that piece aside and you start putting other things together. You don't get rid of that piece necessarily. It's going to be an answer to something at some point.
Yeah.
Paranormal puzzle goes beyond that of just a ghost. Okay? We will take in any things that are from the outside of that too. For instance, we did research when it came down to ghosts. We wanted to understand that led us to the research of psychics. Okay, we have some psychics that can sometimes hear them, but not see them, some that could see them, but not hear them, some that get visions. Okay, what if based off of how they see ghosts, does that tell us what a ghost composition might be and and some of their manifestation related stuff? So I'm not pulling the I'm not sitting there just looking at the ghost and just trying to understand the ghost. I'm trying to look for other factors other pieces where I could go, maybe this connects. And that's how the paranormal puzzle starts developing, is that as you start getting the pieces and they start to fit, the picture begins to form. And and you know how it gets when as you're doing the puzzle and you get less pieces to choose from and stuff like that, and everything starts to come together, it becomes quicker. It doesn't become as difficult.
Yeah.
That's the same with this. That's the whole approach, is that, oh, we're starting to see a picture here. And then things start to fall into place. Wait a minute, that means this. And we're starting to put it all together and goes, oh, wow, it is coming together. Part of that, too, is aside from seeing the picture, part of seeing those pictures is the statistics. We could put something together, but the statistics don't make sense. That's an indication that your pieces are in the wrong place.
Yeah.
So we'll look into things such as ancient texts, religion, psychology, biology. It's not all in the specific paranormal stuff. We may go into outside of what's looked at in the paranormal field and bring that into the picture as well. For all we know, that could be pieces of the puzzle that we're just ignoring. So that's where it becomes extremely advanced. We start with the puzzle. You try to start with the basic stuff. I'm going to find the outer edges, and I'm going to work my way in where it's all the complex stuff. So that's the other part of when I try to show people how to do the research involving the paranormal puzzle approach. There's another concept called simple to complex. Start with the baseline, which is your simple stuff. Once you've established your baseline, now begin to go into the more complex. But don't try to go right into the middle and think you're going to, okay, I have this border right here. Let me go to the middle now and I'm going to start solving all this complex stuff here and I'll lead it all the way out to the border. Start with the simple stuff, build from there. You're building a picture. And as the picture forms, you'll understand what pieces need to go where as it continues to form. So
That's the kind of framework.
that's the framework of it. Yes.
Now, has the paranormal puzzle method led you to conclusions you weren't prepared to accept?
A bunch of times. A bunch of times. And that's where I'll always tell people, and I may have said it in your last episode too, about for people who are getting into paranormal research, of the first thing they should do is to get that unbiased and neutral personality going. Look in the mirror and ask yourself if you're ready to come across things that may disrupt your belief that may contradict it. Are you going to be willing to accept that? Or are you going to let your go, no, that can't be right because I've always believed this. And that since you've always believed that, now that's going to impact your research. You're going to try to get something to fit your narrative. And if it fits your narrative, you're going to go down a very long path of, it's going to happen two ways. Either you're going to hit a brick wall and you're going to continue running in place and hitting that brick wall, or you're going to go down such a long path and you're going to keep going and wondering why it doesn't end. So
Yeah.
you have to, research is the first part of research. One of the most important parts of being a paranormal researcher or starting off is your mentality, is essentially the psychological portion of it, because we don't always want to get, humans are conditioned to want comfortable answers to things. They want things that make them happy. They want things that make them fuzzy. Life isn't like that.
Yeah.
And there's the reality portion of it, that all the answers we may find may not be the things that we really want.
So Uini Research has investigated, I think, Wilson's Castle and the Wildwood Sanitarium, among other locations. Of everyone that you've been, which location gave you the most significant evidence that you've ever collected?
Hands down, Wildwood Sanitarium.
Wildwood.
Yeah.
I was assuming, but I had to ask.
You know what? I will always stand by Wildwood Sanitarium, and the spirits there are, like I said, I'll always stand by that. The spirits there are amazing. The fact that Lori, Brooke, and Zach really taking the time to fix up the place, really keep the history going, and giving people the opportunity to get in there and do some significant research. That place, the owners, they're all a blessing. They really are. They're a blessing to the field. We've had great evidence, significant evidence at the Hinsdale House and Wilson Castle as well. There was a piece of evidence that's going to be in the Paranormal Puzzle book that comes from Wilson and Castle, and later becomes a big part of the puzzle. And that helps with what happens at Wildwood Sanitarium. But there's just so much when it comes down to Wildwood Sanitarium, that there was so many significant things, and people are going to see that in Paranormal Puzzle Path to Communication. People are going to see the things that are happening. And I think for many people who do not know the backstory, or they just simply know, oh, my brother's not around anymore, they're going to go into this book and by the end go, what the heck just happened? And I hope between what I've put in there for the Hinsdale House, Wilson Castle, and Wildwood Sanitarium, I hope that ultimately when people see it who have not been to those places, it'll spark more interest, that it'll bring people to those places, because they are great locations. And there's also, and again, of course, the people also help with the place. And we have three very great owners for those three properties. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what people think about the story aspect, the puzzle aspect to it.
That's great. Yeah. I was actually at Wilson's Castle this past October.
Oh, nice.
I went for the first time. I only took the tour and walked around and everything, but loved it. I can't wait to go back. And of course, I'll be going to Wildwood May 16th. So when this airs, it will be only a couple weeks away. I'm very excited to go there. I haven't been to the Hinsdale House yet. I'm trying to talk the Misfits into possibly going over there. We're going the day before. We're going on Friday, staying in a hotel, and then because it's a 7-hour drive for us. We're going the day before, and then I think what we're gonna, I don't know what we're doing during the day on Saturday, but then we'll investigate at Wildwood Saturday night. I'm hoping to maybe at least go see the outside of the house.
Yeah, the Hinsdale property, it's more of the property that's haunted than the house itself. The house is very small. I joke about it a little bit. I joked about it with my parents, where I said they wanted to see it. And I was like, I'll give you the quick tour. I said, here's when we go there, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk into the house and go, here it is. And there's more to it. There's the
Yeah.
basement that you can't see, and then there's a few rooms upstairs. But ultimately, it's a small farmhouse. It's super small. I didn't realize. I knew it was a small house before the first time I went there. I didn't realize how small it was until I stood in front of it.
Oh,
But the activity, though, it's different. It is. We had a very active night there. So don't, for anybody that's listening to this, don't let the small house fool you. Don't let the property fool you. The property is far bigger than the house. The property has a nice a little pond thing. Dan Class, who's the owner, he has done such amazing work restoring it and making the property is absolutely gorgeous. People can camp outside, and they have a giving tree. They've got stairs that go up into a set of woods with a giving tree up there. It's just know when you go there, you're pretty much by yourself. There's no one around.
Nope. Yeah, I we want to visit there as well. But the other thing I wanted to ask you about before we dive into more specifics into the book is Apparition Hall. I know that it fascinated me. I think I watched you do some of that on YouTube at one point. Can you explain what you do for that or the basics of it?
Oh yeah, definitely the basics because the explanation will go beyond this show. So basically the focus of Project Apparition Hall is to understand the manifestation process and the composition of spiritual entities. How do they put themselves together? What do they use within the environment to put themselves together? How can we see them? How long or how do they actually manifest? How long do they manifest for before they're gone? So what Project Apparition Hall is doing is essentially that's why we call hall is because we're developing a hall. There's going to be a device, or I'm going to say a series of devices that will be hooked together that creates a hall, and we're trying to create a environment within that hall that will allow them to appear. So the research that we're doing, we're trying to work with the spirits. That's why we've worked so hard talking or building rapport with the Wildwood Sanitarium spirits. They were willing to help. They've given some information on their end about things that help them. And then we're doing things on our end to try to see what may or may not work. So before we did really started Project Apparition Hall, it was called the Manifestation Project at the time. Jeremy was focusing on long exposure photography, and at some points he used a green laser. He would point it towards the away from the lens, and he was trying to essentially color in the spirits. Basically, he was hoping that if the laser connected with something that had some type of mass to it, enough that it would reflect off of the laser and send light back into the lens, we may actually see a spiritual entity being essentially drawn in, almost like that invisible ink type thing.
Yeah.
So that's what he was trying to do with it. We were having no results with that. So we were thinking that the light was so bright from the laser, because it was a strong laser, that it was overpowering any apparitions that were trying to come through. Before Jeremy died, we talked about doing a different variation of the laser where we did the laser and created a wall, a barrier between us, the lens, and maybe if it hits the spirits, maybe it'll do something, or maybe the spirits behind it, or they could stand in front of it, and we would rapidly move the laser in an up and down motion. That changed everything. On top of that, we used fog. So we would use fog to throw into the environment for something to help reflect. We don't know if that helped with the spirits putting things together, like the chemicals or whatever's in it to help them. We're looking for proper temperature, proper humidity levels, whether there needs to be an electromagnetic spike within the area. But basically what people are seeing now, like on the YouTube videos and such, and Deathwalker, what you're seeing is more of us testing for when we build the version 1 of the hall, which version 1 we're looking to build and have it ready this year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's been years in the making. We have enough stats to get version 1 done. We anticipate that it's going to be a 4-phase process, so we expect version 4 will be the final version of it, but we don't anticipate that's going to be anywhere. Version 4 is not anywhere in the near future.
Yeah.
I could probably be in my 70s at that point, or 80s. Maybe I'll be dead. Who knows? But version 1's is ready to be made, so we're going to do that and hopefully bring it out to the paranormal community, bring it out to other locations, and begin doing that, because we've brought Project Apparition Hall to other locations aside from Wildwood Sanitarium. And the kicker is for Wildwood Sanitarium and Hinsdale House, the first time we were at both those locations, Jeremy and I chose to do Hinsdale House and Wildwood Sanitarium within the same weekend, because the hypothesis was that Hinsdale House we would get more apparitions and Wildwood we would get less based off of environmental factors. and it turned out to be right. Wildwood is a gold mine for EVPs. Apparitions, not as much. Hinsdale House, it's the opposite. They get great EVPs. You have a better chance of getting apparitions there than you would at Wildwood. So what we wanted to do was, we know there were spirits at Wildwood, but why can we not see them? Why are we having so much of a hard time capturing them? So we wanted to find a way that if they are helping us and they just for some reason can't appear, can we do things or create something that would allow us to see them? And so that's where, if we were able to increase the amount of apparitions we document at Wildwood Sanitarium, then we're on to something.
Yeah.
And if we can't, either they really don't care to help us, or we're nowhere near where we need to be.
Yeah. So moving on to your book, it's the Paranormal Puzzle Path to Communication. What does communication mean in this context?
It's got a few meanings. So the communication is involving my brother and the path. So that's the whole path. And that's the big puzzle part, is the path to actually communicating with Jeremy. And it's not just in the sense of an EVP of him going, "Hi, John," or something to that effect. It goes well beyond that. It's about the visual connection. It's about the audio connection. It's about taking the path down where Jeremy and I reconnect on a higher level. The other aspect of the communication too is this book focuses on family and unity aspects, where I show that and I make mention, there's people that I see stuff that they do and I'm like, I don't agree with that, but okay, whatever. And then you see that I end up learning some lessons in the book, that the things that I was just like, yeah, okay. Even things that my brothers said that I just blew off, turned out that they actually mattered. It was a good thing that I witnessed it or recorded it, because it came back later and it became some of those pieces that I was just like, I don't see. And this wasn't me trying to fit them together. This was me going, this is a useless piece. And then going back to it and going, oh, why didn't I do this before? So there's quite the growing part. And so that's where the communication aspect goes further. It goes outside of the story itself. The hope is for people to talk to each other. It's to open up communication amongst other people, maybe even people that you wouldn't typically talk to. So it's got a few meanings to it.
Okay. Now, you described the book as interactive. Readers piece together the evidence themselves. Why was that format the right choice for this book specifically?
So one of the things about this kind of goes with me, my mindset. I've always been more of a teaching type person. Growing up, I did the whole play school when I was younger. My brother was, and imaginary friends that I created and toys and stuff. They were all characters in my school. And so I always wanted to be a teacher. I ended up becoming an instructor for security. I became the head of training and intelligence division. So I did get part of my vision fulfilled. But I've always been one that loves to teach. I love to do presentations but one of the things is, I don't like to teach just black and white factual things. I like to stimulate the mind. I like to get people to think in ways and bring out talents within themselves that they don't know that they have. Paranormal Puzzle, creating that format, it's not just a book about simply just reading and coming to front to back. You can do that. You could do that with this book. You could
Yeah.
read front to back and go, okay, that was a nice story. You want the full impact of it? I like to create interactive stuff. It's like it's me teaching, but through a book, since I'm not standing in front of you doing a presentation. And when I do classes, my classes are not me standing up there for an hour talking at you. There's an interactive portion always. And it always gets into discussions, and I ask them questions, they ask me questions. We do different exercises together. It's always highly interactive. So the book is supposed to be the same. Plus, when I think of puzzle, yeah, there's that we could create a puzzle story, but when you buy a puzzle, typically you're trying to buy a puzzle to put it together. So why would I just give you a story where I just put it together for you?
Yeah,
So
makes sense.
I give the opportunity that you can choose not to do it, but you also have the opportunity where you can become a part of it and see if what you're putting together comes to fruition in the final chapter. So in that case, at the end of each of the chapters, there's questions to make you think. There's things that will make you look outside of the book, not just what's within the book.
Oh,
Plenty of pictures. And I don't tell you exactly, I'll give you a hint at what you should look at for the outside stuff, but I won't tell you exactly what to look for. My hope is that you will discover it. Because if I just, like I said, if I just give you the answer, you never discovered it. And then you won't
yeah,
know how to discover it. And
yeah.
that's the big thing is how you can go back. Let's say you got it wrong, you missed something. You can go back and figure out what went wrong in your research. And then you get to correct yourself rather than somebody correcting you. So you get to learn more about yourself rather than me telling you the answer. You learn more about you. There's QR codes where people will be able to scan. It'll bring them to a menu where they click on one of the links and it'll bring them to videos that will connect with what I'm talking about in the story so they can visually or hear it, see it or hear it. Plenty of pictures. There's this, and the question parts you can write in the book. And then at the very end, at chapter 6, there's a final predictions page. Everything that you've learned, that you've seen, what do you think's going to happen in chapter 7?
Oh,
And see how far you get. There's also in the back of the book what I call web of events. And basically that's some of the way I do things. It's basically the middle, the center, or you could do top, however you want to do it, is basically here's what I'm trying to figure out. Let's see what the events where this leads me down. And you start to visually see the story playing out. And that may help you connect what's going to happen. So there's a lot of content packed in this book.
yeah, it sounds like very exciting. So, I have a couple more questions before we wrap up, but what do you want someone to walk away believing after they finish your book?
A few things. Suicide's not the answer. Go under there is a faith portion in the book. There were these moments where it was just like, wow, there's got to be a higher power involved in all this because some of the stuff I questioned whether it was my brother Jeremy, because I was like, this is too big for this. There's also of talking to people. I want people to see that just because you may not agree with an approach or somebody's thought process on something doesn't mean that you should ignore it because it may come back later. It may come back later. And it did for me. And I show that. And the book is basically, it focuses on hope. It's a dark story at the beginning. Jeremy's dead. And literally that the book starts off that way. For the most part, it has a bit of an intro to it. It doesn't focus on the suicide. It focuses on, but it does start off with Jeremy's dead. And now it's the brother by himself. There's going to be that emotional aspect to it where it's me, where I'm beating myself up. I'm self-doubting. So that's actually another big point. That's where I was trying to lead with this is that people should walk away believing in themselves. When you think you can't do it, there's ways that it can happen.
Yeah, that's great. Now, just kind of looking towards the kind of wider field and the future, paranormal field has exploded in popularity over the last 20 years. Is that good for serious research, or has it made research much harder?
I always say I have 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the field because, in a sense, the paranormal field, in my opinion, is not heading in the right direction. But at the same time, the interest in the paranormal, that's not a bad thing. When my brother and I were kids, this wasn't something you talked about out in the open all the time without getting looks. Now I could talk, don't get those same looks anymore as much. Now I'll say, oh, I do paranormal research, and people, oh, that's awesome. What's the scariest thing you've ever seen? This could be a random conversation. This wasn't something that happened before, and I'm grateful that this is something that's more has become more open. So yes, there's a positive side, but also with that, there's always going to be a negative to it. And one of the things for the paranormal field itself is that at this point, anybody can just say I'm a paranormal investigator, and boom, they're a paranormal investigator. That's all they have to say is I'm a paranormal
Yeah.
investigator, and boom. So, like I said, there's the positives, there's the negatives, but I don't focus on. I'll see what other people are doing. Don't get me wrong. I'll see that people are doing some childish things, but I don't let that bother me. I'm not sitting there making videos about them, about, oh, look at what these people are doing. Okay, let them do it. That
Yeah.
does not affect my research. I don't care. My research, if I spend time trying to focus on why these people are doing this crap, I'm not spending time doing the actual research. I'm getting no closer to finding the truth. And if
Yeah.
that's what my mission is to do that, you guys go do your thing and I'll continue doing my work. And it when people are going after other people, you're ultimately amplifying everybody, or amplifying the people who are doing that. You're amplifying the entire thing. So the entire public in the community, or the public, they're watching this and they're looking at this going, wow, this is
Well,
really immature.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, I agree. So, in what is the single biggest mistake investigators make when they're interpreting evidence?
What do you mean by interpreting?
When they're looking at evidence that they've gathered, is there mistakes that people are making, or in your opinion, like the most common?
Part of it is first off, like not having certain knowledge about specific types of natural causes. The whole I'm going to go out and say it. The whole debunking thing.
No.
Now, a lot of people think, wow, I'm big on science, but here I am knocking the debunking stuff. Debunking is a skeptic's approach. That's not that's pseudoscience. The science approach is unbiased. It's verification process, not debunking process. Debunking process is only part of the verification process. You have to verify both ends of the spectrum. If you're using the skeptic's approach, you've already shown that you're doing one side. You're focusing on the skeptic side. Skeptic is not unbiased. You're leaning. Some people, they let their beliefs come in. I've seen it before. People are reviewing it. If they could see something that actually is paranormal, they'll bypass it. They may throw out evidence because it's poor evidence. What we do with what's considered poor evidence, something that we would not put out publicly, we keep it as internal evidence.
Yeah.
We put it aside and analyze it later because, again, pieces of the puzzle, you never know if that's going to come back up. We won't consider it as definitely paranormal without a reasonable doubt, but
Yeah.
we will hold on to it.
Just yeah. Even though it's not like right out there, you want to hold on to it because there's something there.
And
Probably.
yeah, I guess the thing that people have said, and they've tried to say it to me, and I will always disagree with it. If you can't figure out if it's paranormal or not, then just eliminate it. That's a mistake because you're basically just saying, if I can't explain it, then no. The answer is
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
How do you know that it's definitely no? This is one of those things where I would put it aside for a later time, and maybe I'll never come back to it. Maybe I've had evidence that I've stored for years, and I came back years later and go, wait a minute, there was something that happened here. I wonder if, and it either caused
You
me to
connect the
eliminate it
dots.
or I ended up finding out it was real.
Yeah. Now, what is next for you? Do you have any other books planned? I know you're working on multiple different projects.
Mhm.
And where can people find you? That's a loaded question, but
No, so currently I'm working with Dom of the Chase Manor in Auburn, New York. Another great location. I've teamed up with him and we're doing some incredible stuff together. We got a paranormal puzzle in-person event in June. I've put it out on my Facebook page. Chase Manor's on their page. They're sharing it. There's going to be a bunch of books. The next book is Paranormal Puzzle: Nature of the Spirit, and but we're also starting what's called the Secrets of series. So it'll be Paranormal Puzzle: Secrets of Chase Manor, Paranormal Puzzle: Secrets of Apparition, We just launched our website called paranormalpuzzle.net. You could sign up. It's a $5 a year membership. Part of that funding goes towards the Chase Manor. And what happens with that is you're actually becoming a part of the story. You're helping form the next book, which the next book's not, it's Nature of the Spirit. So Nature of the Spirit, that's not going to be, that story is already complete. I'm just typing it. This one, what you do on the site, your interactions, your feedback may impact the future paranormal puzzle books, and you actually see the books form. So there's going to be chapters. When a chapter's done, the chapter's posted on the website. For those who have the membership, they'll be able to read it. And then when we're done and we're ready to do the final chapter, it's actually going to we write the final chapter and it turns into the physical book.
Oh,
So Paranormal Puzzle is going to become a much larger series. There's going to be the Paranormal Puzzle Secrets of series, and then there's going to be the mainstream Paranormal Puzzle stuff that combines everything from the Secrets of series into one giant puzzle picture. But that's the big thing we just launched recently was paranormalpuzzle.net. And we originally had the prices at $20 per puzzle package, and $35 for both packages. We agreed that it should go down to $5 due to economic reasons. We want people to experience this while at the same time helping with the restoration of other properties. And then on top of that, people get to have fun and see how the paranormal puzzle method comes together.
yeah, that sounds great. That's really interesting. And I'll make sure to put all your links in the description below. So that if anyone wants to check out any of that or purchase your book or anything, then we'll have it all in there so that it's just a click away. I
Sorry,
think, yep.
Sorry, I just wanted to add one more thing into that. There was another benefit that did come out from the membership on the Paranormal Puzzle site. Chase Manor, for those who do sign up for that $5 a year membership, if they do overnight investigations, they allow up to 10 people to be on property. If they sign up for the overnight investigation, it's $100 off for every visit. Doesn't matter what day, weekend, weekday. For the 5-hour one, it's $50 off. He just announced an alumni thing. So if you've been there once, whether it's the 5-hour one or the overnight one, you get $50 off regardless. What he's doing with the paranormal puzzle portion of it is for the alumni people, they get the $50 off for the alumni stuff on top of the discounts that I already just mentioned. So you'll actually get $150 off for an overnight, which is normally $350. So you'd pay $200 for 10 people for 16 hours.
That is a really good deal.
He believes in having people come in, wanting to come back. The place is amazing. It's within the top 2 haunted places I've been. And I've only been there for 3 days. And he said that was tame during the time I was there. And I've seen some of the other stuff that has come out that I'm like, yeah, maybe that night that I had, those 3 nights I had was tame. Wow, this is crazy. Because the stuff that happened to me was crazy.
Wow. That's amazing. But yes, I thank you for joining tonight. I think it was a great conversation. I know I learned a lot. I hope that my audience has too. And folks, the book is a Paranormal Puzzle, Path to Communication by John Griffin. And I will have all the different links that we discussed tonight in the description below. So go grab a copy. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so that YouTube makes sure that you never miss what we're doing here. Make sure you follow John and support him if you can. And as always, history never truly dies. It just finds new ways to haunt us. Till next time, keep digging into the darkness.